The polished gleam of the mahogany boardroom table reflected the face of a woman in complete control. 38-year-old Eleanor Vance was the CEO of a sprawling financial tech empire, a titan in a world of sharks and numbers. Her days were a symphony of high-stakes negotiations, ruthless decisions, and the constant, humming pressure of a multi-billion-dollar corporation resting squarely on her shoulders. Her dark hair was always pulled back into a severe, elegant chignon, a style that allowed no room for frivolity, much like her schedule. She was respected, feared, and profoundly successful. Yet, every Saturday at precisely 9 a.m., she would trade her tailored power suit for soft jeans and a simple sweater, becoming, for a few precious hours, just mommy. Her sanctuary, and that of her 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was a cozy, unassuming cafe called the Corner Perk. It was a world away from the cold glass and steel of her skyscraper office place filled with the warm, comforting aromas of brewing coffee and baking cinnamon. This weekly ritual was Eleanor's anchor, a desperate attempt to bridge the chasm between her all-consuming career and the fleeting, precious moments of her daughter's childhood. Lily was a bright spark of a child, with her mother's determined chin, but with eyes that held a soft, dreamy quality Eleanor vaguely remembered having herself, once. Lily's father, a casualty of a brief, ill-fated marriage that had crumbled under the weight of Eleanor's ambition, was a distant memory, a faded photograph on a forgotten shelf. Eleanor had convinced herself she was enough for Lily, that she could be both mother and father, provider and nurturer. But as she watched her daughter carefully line up sugar packets on the table, she felt the familiar, gnawing ache of inadequacy, a feeling she ruthlessly suppressed in every other area of her life. Their Saturday mornings were a well-rehearsed play, yet Eleanor often found her mind wandering to market analyses and upcoming mergers, a guilty reflex she despised but couldn't control. Into this carefully curated bubble of their Saturday morning ritual walked Daniel. At 29, he was the cafe's most cherished waiter, moving through the bustling room with an easy, unhurried grace that seemed to calm the very air around him. He was a musician, saving every penny from his job to fund the recording of his first album, a dream he spoke of with a quiet passion that was both endearing and, to Eleanor's pragmatic mind, utterly impractical. Daniel's currency was not in stock options or market shares, but in small, genuine acts of kindness. He didn't just serve Lily her hot chocolate, he remembered to draw a smiley face in the foam, a tiny detail that made Lily's own face break into a radiant smile. He knew about her pet turtle, Sheldon, and would always ask how the little reptile was faring. He'd listen with solemn intensity as Lily described her latest Lego creation, or a particularly exciting dream. For her, Daniel wasn't just the man who brought her pancakes, he was a co-conspirator in the grand adventure of her childhood. Eleanor observed these interactions from behind her porcelain coffee cup, a silent spectator to a connection she both appreciated and envied. The effortless warmth Daniel shared with her daughter was a language she struggled to speak fluently. She could provide Lily with anything money could buy, the best schools, clothes, and toys, but she couldn't seem to provide the simple, undivided attention that Daniel gave away so freely. The contrast was a quiet, constant rebuke. He possessed a kind of gentle, present energy that her high-pressure life had stripped away from her, leaving a void she tried to fill with success and material comfort. She was grateful for his kindness, deeply so, but it also held up a mirror to her own parental anxieties, reflecting a part of her daughter's emotional world that felt just beyond her reach. Place she was too busy, too distracted, too guarded to fully enter. One crisp autumn Saturday, the weight of a particularly brutal corporate battle settled heavily on Eleanor's shoulders. She had spent the week orchestrating a hostile takeover, a move that would solidify her company's dominance, but had left a trail of professional carnage in its wake. She was physically present in the cozy cafe, but her mind was a battlefield of numbers and strategies. She barely registered Lily's unusual silence, her daughter's gaze fixed on a family in the booth across from them. A father was patiently untangling his little girl's hair ribbon, his large, clumsy fingers surprisingly gentle, a soft smile playing on his lips as she chatted away. Lily watched them with a quiet, heartbreaking intensity, her small hands twisting her napkin in her lap. The longing in her eyes was a palpable thing, a silent scream in the cheerful din of the cafe. When Daniel arrived to take their order, he immediately sensed the shift in the atmosphere. His gift was an intuitive empathy, an ability to read the subtle emotional currents in a room. He crouched down to Lily's level, his friendly face etched with genuine concern. "Everything okay, little superstar?" "You're awfully quiet today." Lily looked from the family to her mother's distracted face, and then up at Daniel. Her eyes, wide and serious, held the accumulated weight of 1,000 unspoken wishes. She took a deep, shaky breath, as if steeling herself for a monumental leap. "Daniel," she asked, her voice a small, clear bell that cut through the noise of Eleanor's inner turmoil. "Can you be my daddy?" The question hung in the air, innocent and yet utterly devastating. Time seemed to warp and slow. The clatter of forks on plates, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversation, it all faded into a distant, roaring silence in Eleanor's ears. She froze completely, her hand hovering over her coffee cup, her breath caught in her throat. Her carefully constructed world, the one where her strength was absolute and her self-sufficiency was her armor, cracked down the middle. In that single, guileless question, her daughter had laid bare the gaping hole in their lives, a void that all of Eleanor's power and wealth could not begin to fill. The pain was sharp, physical, a shard of ice in her chest. She looked at Daniel, her own eyes pleading, expecting him to look away in awkwardness, to stammer an excuse, to retreat from the emotional grenade her child had just rolled to his feet. But he didn't. He held Lily's gaze, his own expression one of profound, unwavering gentleness. In that frozen, terrifying moment, Eleanor Vance, the indomitable CEO, felt a helplessness so profound it threatened to shatter her completely. Daniel's heart ached with a sudden, overwhelming wave of compassion. He saw the desperate hope in Lily's eyes and the silent, fractured panic on Eleanor's face. He didn't see an awkward situation to be escaped, he saw a moment of profound human need that required the utmost care. He reached out and gently took Lily's small hand in his touch a small anchor of warmth in the churning emotional sea. "Wow, Lily," he said softly, his voice steady and kind, a stark contrast to the chaos in Eleanor's mind. "That is the greatest compliment anyone has ever given me." "Thank you for asking." He didn't dismiss her question, or treat it as a childish fantasy. He received it as the profound honor it was intended to be, validating the enormous courage it took for her to speak her heart's deepest desire. "Being a daddy is a very special and very important job," he continued, his tone gentle and serious. "It means being there to chase away nightmares, to help build the tallest Lego towers, and to sing silly songs in the car, even if you can't sing very well." Lily listened, her expression solemn, her hope still flickering. "But you're already good at that stuff," she reasoned with the unassailable logic of a child. "You always know how to make me laugh when I'm grumpy." A fresh tear escaped Eleanor's eye and traced a hot path down her cheek. Her daughter equated fatherhood with the very things she felt she was failing to provide: consistent joy, patient attention, and the simple act of being present. The cafe's ambient noise began to filter back in, breaking the spell. The moment's raw intensity dissipated slightly, and Daniel gave Lily's hand a final reassuring squeeze before standing up. He met Eleanor's gaze, and in his eyes, she saw no pity, no judgment, only a deep, shared understanding of the moment's fragile significance. "I'll give you 2 minutes," he said quietly, offering her a small, supportive nod before walking away, leaving Eleanor to navigate the emotional wreckage her daughter's innocent question had caused. The drive home was a cocoon of heavy silence. Eleanor kept glancing at Lily in the rearview mirror, but the little girl was humming to a song on the radio, seemingly unburdened, having passed her heavy question on for the adults to carry. It was Eleanor who was left staggering under its weight. The following week was a blur of meetings and deadlines, but the memory of that moment in the cafe haunted Eleanor. Lily's question echoed in the quiet of her sterile apartment, forcing her to confront the carefully curated loneliness she had mistaken for strength. She had built an empire, but had she failed to build a life? Returning to the corner perk that Saturday felt like walking toward a verdict. A part of her wanted to flee, to find a new cafe, to erase the memory, but she knew that would be a coward's escape. She needed to face it, for Lily's sake and for her own. As they slid into their usual booth, her stomach twisted with anxiety. When Daniel approached, his smile was as warm and genuine as ever. There was no trace of awkwardness in his demeanor, no hint of the emotional minefield they had navigated a week prior. After he had taken their order and delivered Lily's hot chocolate, with its customary smiley face, Eleanor took a deep breath. "Daniel," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "About last week. I am so sorry. Lily, she can be very direct. I hope she didn't put you in a difficult position." Daniel leaned a hand against their table, his expression kind. "Eleanor," he said, and the sound of her first name from him felt both startlingly intimate and strangely comforting. "Please don't apologize. She paid me a compliment I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. You have an incredible daughter." His sincerity was like a balm on her raw nerves. In her world, every word was measured, every interaction a subtle negotiation. His was just a simple, unvarnished truth. "You're doing a great job," he added softly. "She's so smart and full of so much love. That comes from you." The unearned grace of his words cracked open something deep inside her. "I feel like I'm not enough," she confessed, the admission so raw and unplanned it shocked her. "I'm so busy trying to be everything for her that I'm afraid I'm ending up being nothing." This was a vulnerability she had never shown anyone, a crack in the formidable facade of the CEO. He didn't flinch. He just listened, his empathy a safe harbor. "Nobody can be everything," he said gently. "Just being here, every Saturday, no matter what, that's not nothing. That's the most important everything there is." The conversation shifted then, moving from the emotional weight of the past week into new territory. He asked her about her work, not about the profits or the power, but about the stress, the passion that drove her in the beginning. In turn, she asked about his music, and his entire being seemed to light up as he described the way a melody could capture a feeling that words never could. For the first time, they were not just a customer and a waiter, they were Eleanor and Daniel. As they prepared to leave, Eleanor was seized by an uncharacteristic impulse, a desire to prolong this fragile, authentic connection. "We were going to the art museum this afternoon," she said, the words feeling both risky and liberating. "Lily wanted to see the Impressionist exhibit. Would you want to come with us?" "As my guest, of course." "As a thank you for your kindness." Daniel's smile was immediate and bright, reaching his eyes and crinkling the corners. "I would love that," he said, and his simple acceptance felt like a seismic shift, a doorway opening into a world she hadn't realized she was locked out of. The museum was a revelation. Away from the context of the cafe, their dynamic transformed. Eleanor watched, mesmerized, as Daniel explained the concept of light and shadow in a Monet painting to Lily, not in the dry, academic way a curator would, but by comparing the brushstrokes to frosting on a cake. He made art accessible, magical. He turned the quiet, hallowed halls of the museum into a treasure hunt for colors and shapes, and for the first time in years, Eleanor felt the crushing weight of her responsibilities lift. She wasn't a CEO analyzing an asset, she was a woman watching a kind man make her daughter laugh, and she felt a profound sense of peace. Later, as Lily sketched in a notebook in the museum's sunlit courtyard, Eleanor and Daniel sat on a marble bench. "You're amazing with her," Eleanor said, her voice filled with a quiet awe. "You know how to get into her world." Daniel shrugged, a faint blush on his cheeks. "I don't think it's that complicated. Kids just want you to see what they see. The world is still full of wonder for them." He turned to her, his gaze direct and searching. "It's still in you, too, you know. The wonder. It's just buried under a lot of spreadsheets." His insight was so sharp, so accurate, it startled her. He saw past the powerful CEO to the woman beneath, the one who used to love painting before she decided it was an impractical pursuit. Their weekly ritual evolved. Their Saturday breakfasts at the corner perk became the prelude to a shared afternoon. They explored parks, visited the zoo, and spent one memorable afternoon building a spectacularly inept but joyful sandcastle at a nearby lake. With every shared experience, the walls Eleanor had so carefully constructed around her heart began to dissolve. She saw in Daniel a strength that had nothing to do with power or money. It was a strength of character, of patience, of unwavering integrity. He carried his own burdens, working 2 jobs to support his music and help care for his aging mother, but he did so without complaint, his spirit remaining generous and light. Their conversations deepened, becoming more intimate. He listened, really listened, as she spoke of the crushing loneliness of being at the top, the constant fear of failure, and the guilt that plagued her as a mother. He didn't offer empty platitudes or easy solutions. He offered something far more rare and valuable, his quiet, non-judgmental presence. She, in turn, became the most passionate supporter of his music, listening to his rough demos with a focused intensity she usually reserved for earnings reports. She heard in his melodies the same gentle, soulful quality that defined him as a person. She wasn't just attracted to him, she was in awe of his spirit, of the way he navigated the world with a grace and authenticity she had long since abandoned in her own life. He was not intimidated by her wealth or her position. He saw her, the real her, the woman who was fierce and brilliant but also vulnerable and scared. He didn't want anything from her, which was, ironically, what made her want to give him everything. Their friendship was a slow, beautiful burn, a gentle flame that thawed the frozen parts of her soul and reminded her what it felt like to be truly connected to another human being. It was a connection that was slowly, inevitably, deepening into something more. The turning point came on a cold, rainy Tuesday evening. Eleanor had come home late, bone-weary and demoralized after a deal she had championed had unexpectedly collapsed. The failure was public, and the whispers of her misstep would be all over the financial news by morning. She walked into her apartment expecting the familiar, echoing silence that usually greeted her, a silence that on nights like this felt less like peace and more like a tomb. But tonight was different. The apartment was filled with the warm, savory smell of something cooking. She followed the scent to the kitchen and stopped in the doorway, her briefcase slipping from her numb fingers. Daniel was there, an apron tied loosely around his waist, humming softly as he stirred a pot on the stove. Lily was sitting at the kitchen island, meticulously setting the table for 3, her small face alight with purpose. They both looked up as she entered, their smiles like a beacon in the storm of her day. "We are making your favorite, Mommy," Lily announced proudly. "Spaghetti. Daniel is teaching me the secret to the sauce." Daniel's eyes met hers, and in their warm depths, she saw an immediate understanding of the exhaustion and defeat she was carrying. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just walked over, gently took her coat, and said, "You're just in time. Go sit down and relax. We've got this." As she sank onto a kitchen stool, watching them move around the kitchen together in a comfortable, practiced rhythm, a profound realization washed over her. For years, she had equated home with a physical space, a place of quiet refuge from the world. But she had been wrong. Home wasn't a place. It was this. It was the feeling of being cared for, of being part of a we. It was the gentle hum of a shared life, the simple, sacred act of making a meal together. This feeling of belonging, of being unconditionally accepted even in her moment of failure, was more valuable than any deal she had ever closed, more precious than any number in her bank account. In that small, warm kitchen, surrounded by the smell of garlic and tomatoes, Eleanor Vance finally, truly, came home. From that night on, the pretense of mere friendship fell away, replaced by a deep and abiding love that felt as natural and necessary as breathing. Daniel's presence in their lives became a permanent fixture, his easy laughter and gentle music filling the once sterile spaces of Eleanor's apartment and her heart. He moved in not with a grand declaration, but with a slow, organic merging of their lives, one guitar case and a box of worn paperbacks at a time. He never tried to change Eleanor, but his love created a space where she could change herself. She started leaving work at a reasonable hour, understanding that the most important merger was the one happening within the walls of her own home. She delegated more, trusted her team, and rediscovered the joy of simply being, rather than constantly doing. She learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, but the access point for true connection. Daniel, in turn, was not a damsel in distress for her to rescue with her wealth. When he finally finished his album, she didn't just write a check. Instead, she used her formidable business acumen to help him develop a strategic plan, connecting him with industry experts and helping him launch his own independent label. She empowered him not by giving him a handout, but by investing in his dream with the same respect and dedication she gave her own company. She became his fiercest champion, just as he was her calmest harbor. Their partnership was a beautiful synergy of their different strengths, a testament to the fact that love isn't about finding someone who is just like you, but about finding someone who complements you, who fills in your gaps and allows you to do the same for them. They were two different worlds colliding and creating a new, more beautiful universe in the process. Several months later, on a sun-drenched Saturday morning, the three of them sat in their usual booth at the corner perk. The place was the same, the coffee tasted the same, but their entire world had been irrevocably and wonderfully transformed. Daniel was showing Lily a complex chord on his guitar, which he had brought with him, her small fingers struggling to press down on the strings. Eleanor watched them, a soft, genuine smile gracing her lips, a smile that was seen more and more often these days. There was a lightness in her now, a peaceful radiance that had replaced the guarded tension she used to carry. Lily finally managed to strum a clumsy but recognizable chord, and she looked up, her face beaming with pride. She looked at Daniel, then at her mother, her expression thoughtful. "So," she said with the serious air of a philosopher who has just solved a great mystery. "Daniel isn't my daddy." Eleanor's heart gave a small, familiar pang of the old pain, but it was fleeting. Daniel simply smiled, waiting for Lily to finish her thought. "He's Daniel," she continued, her logic simple and profound. "And I'm Lily. And you're Mommy. And we are family." She said it not as a question, but as a fact, a simple declaration of the truth they were all living. She had, with the pure wisdom only a child possesses, moved beyond labels and definitions to the heart of what truly mattered. They weren't a replacement for something that was lost, they were something entirely new, something they had built together. Eleanor reached across the table, her hand covering both Daniel's and Lily's. "Yes, my love," she said, her voice thick with an emotion that was no longer sorrow, but a deep and boundless joy. "We are family." The story of their love became a quiet anthem in their lives, a reminder that the most successful ventures are not measured in dollars, but in moments of shared laughter and quiet support, and that sometimes, a child's innocent question is not a sign of what is missing, but a map to a future you never knew you were searching for. If this story reminded you that the best families are the ones we choose to build, and that true strength is found in the courage to be vulnerable, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear that love can be found in the most unexpected of places. Subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of human connection and the unexpected ways we find our way home. And please, take a moment to comment below and share a time when a simple question from a child changed your perspective, or when an unlikely person brought unexpected joy into your life. Your story might be the very thing someone else needs to read today, to remember that it's never too late to create the life you truly want with the people you love.